Hey guys, it's Captain Forest here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over both these combatants to see who would win more often than not in a inverse situation, Darkseid versus the Darkest Knight. Now if you guys are new to my channel, please leave a like, comment down below and subscribe for further content. Also, shouts to the Coffee Shop gang, they make awesome content, their links will be in the description, and also shouts to HQ Squad, massive shouts to the team, they've been a huge help in my videos. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead, start with Darkseid, and I'll talk about the Darkest Knight afterwards. So let's begin with some of the scaling that current Darkseid has. My main focus will be on current Darkseid, true form Darkseid with all of his merged emanations and all that stuff. So we all know in Infinite Frontier that Darkseid was easily able to dispatch of the Quintessence. Now the Spectre notes that the Quintessence are literally the highest order, referring to the hierarchy in terms of like the highest plane of existence. So basically just talking about their level of power and hierarchy and where they're placed in the DC multiverse. And all of these characters, all of the Quintessence, get completely one-shotted and embarrassed by this same Darkseid, who literally absorbed all of his other past emanations and past selves into himself, which is very impressive. So that's pretty much it for Darkseid. Now, I've actually made a video on Darkseid when he fights Beyonder, so if you guys want to check that out, I go into more detail on Darkseid's hacks and abilities. Please check that video out. I'll leave that link in the description. But anyway, I'll talk more about how the fight will progress. I'll talk more about his hacks and other abilities in my analysis. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the Darkest Knight to see what he brings to the table. So the Darkest Knight is the Batman who laughs. After getting almost killed by the Chainsaw of Truth, the Batman who laughs brain was transferred into Batmanhattan. Then he took new powers and a form called the Darkest Knight. Revealing his true power after hijacking crisis energy from 3 broken realities, the Darkest Knight battled Perpetua head-on, and with all of the remnants of reality collapsing in the chaos around their duel, their clash raged across every facet of reality. As we know, Perpetua is superior to her 3 children. She is too powerful for them to defeat. Perpetua notes, in quotations, "You were created from me. You couldn't defeat me without help all of those ages ago, and you can't do it now." The Darkest Knight possesses an understanding of the workings of the universe on a cosmic scale. He is able to feel the dark multiverse as if it were a part of him. He's capable of looking into the future of his own timeline, as well as the future of every Batman of the dark multiverse. The Darkest Knight can traverse between the various realities in the multiverse as well as reach into those worlds at will. He is full of connective energy, which represents all the positive power of creation. The Darkest Knight can duplicate himself. He can deconstruct animate and inanimate objects at will. He straight up restored the Goblin King's mind from his Groblin transformation. The Darkest Knight can summon an army of dark flashes from the dark multiverse. The Darkest Knight has the ability to shapeshift. He can enlarge himself to the size of several planets and can hold the sun in his hand. The Darkest Knight perceives time in a non-linear fashion. This means that he sees the past, present, and future simultaneously. His powers allow him to view everything throughout time as well as the workings of the multiverse. The Darkest Knight is also aware of every Batman from the dark multiverse and was able to pull aspects of the most terrifying and vicious of them. Okay, so that's going to round up both these combatants. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this fight, analysis, give my thoughts on who I think wins more often than not in an inverse situation. In terms of who I think wins more often than not in an inverse situation, I have to look at their feats and what they would bring to the table. Now, I know I said in an old video about Darkseid scaling. I've had to revise some of that scaling and give it another glance. My thoughts have changed over that statement of what the Spectre has said about the highest plane of existence. That could be interpreted in many ways. It could be interpreted about the 6th dimension or just certain parts in creation. The issue with Spectre's statement and the Quintessence and the feat that Darkseid performs, the feats that Darkseid performs after he defeats the Quintessence are very lackluster. In fact, the feats just don't measure up to what the Darkest Knight has performed, especially against Perpetua. We literally see Darkseid struggling against characters like the Annihilator, some random ass alien from another dimension who was holding the crack of the multiverse that was giving Darkseid trouble, and we even see Darkseid completely get embarrassed and bullied by Empty Hand. In fact, this is actually pretty bad in terms of like the statement, because of those feats, those poor and lackluster feats that Darkseid performs with his newly obtained power when he absorbs all his past emanations within himself, and this is all he performs. It does betray and it hurts the validity of Spectre's statement, so it doesn't seem very likely that the AP would be necessarily referring to the 6th dimension. So, you know, 6th dimensional tier scaling, it doesn't really seem like that. It seems more creation level, like S scaling. Darkseid in that run has been kind of lackluster, not very impressive. The feats just completely pale in comparison to what the Darkest Knight's performed. The Darkest Knight, literally, when he got the brain transplant, like just some of that energy alone was literally wreaking havoc all over creation. He was embarrassing Perpetua. Even Golden Wonder Woman had some trouble dealing with the Darkest Knight. And there's actually a statement which helps and solidifies the feats, and the feats also complement the statement. It even says that nobody inside creation could deal or beat the Darkest Knight. Literally, that was concrete to a certain degree, because no one could do anything. It had to take Wonder Woman to go golden. She had to merge with her lasso of truth, and even then she started struggling at the start of the fight as well, so she needed to get an amp during that run. So those feats alone are more solid, more concrete, and hold a lot more credibility compared to Darkseid's feats, and that's the reason why I award AP more so to the Darkest Knight compared to Darkseid. They both have boundless scaling. It's just that Darkseid doesn't scale high enough into the tier. I think that the Darkest Knight is vastly above him in the tier. He scales a lot higher into boundless very easily, more layers, and based off the feats that he's performed. Now, I don't think speed's going to be an issue. I think they're pretty relative. I think they can react to each other just fine. Now, in terms of hexes, they both got some pretty impressive hexes. Darkseid has a lot of hexes. He has his Omega Beams. You know, they can erase things, they can BFR things, they can do all types of versatile things. I don't think the Omega Beams are going to really do much to the Darkest Knight. I think the Darkest Knight will just be fine. I think the Darkest Knight will resist such hexes. I don't think the Omega Beams are going to be an issue whatsoever. In fact, I think the Darkest Knight will probably absorb them. The Darkest Knight has life-draining hexes. So does Darkseid too. But because of the astronomical difference, you know, with the gaps and the scaling, it's like Darkseid isn't going to really be draining. He's going to have a hard time draining anything from the Darkest Knight. The Darkest Knight will literally drain Darkseid like a Capri Sun, whereas by the time Darkseid even attempts to use any of his more potent hexes, he's just going to get wiped out of the water, and I don't think those hexes are going to be like very prevalent in the fight. Now, you could argue Darkseid has, you know, the Type 8 immortality. He's necessary, he can just come back, but the Darkest Knight, he probably doesn't even need to kill Darkseid. He could just, you know, corrupt him, kind of like what the Great Darkness did. In fact, that even hurts Darkseid scaling even more, the fact that he succumbs to the Great Darkness. That's another thing I wanted to say too. But yeah, like, I just see the Darkest Knight taking victory more often than not. Better AP, he has hexes, he has a lot of resistances. The life draining, he could just do what he did to Perpetua. He could just leave Darkseid in a state where he's just a lying carcass on the floor who can barely fight, just out of life, out of energy, out of vitality, and he could just win via standard battle assumptions. So more often than not, I have to give victory to the Darkest Knight. Thank you guys for watching. Guys, enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment down below, and leave your thoughts in the comment section. But yes, it's been real. See you guys in the next one. Peace.